It is 3:06 a.m. You're lying in the dark, scrolling your phone to exhaust your brain. Then, a notification appears from an unknown number. It's an audio message, and without a single tap or permission from you, it starts playing. The voice whispering through the speaker is your own, a recording you never made, telling you, "Don't move." The messages rapidly escalate. A 9-second clip claims, "Something is in the room." A 21-second clip insists, "He's under the bed." Instinct takes over. You pull your legs up, grab a flashlight, and scan the dark corners of the room. You find nothing. This is a classic predestination paradox. In physics and temporal mechanics, this occurs when an individual's attempt to prevent a future event becomes the exact catalyst that causes it. The protagonist is trapped by the geometry of a future timeline that has already been drawn. Their movements aren't reactions to a hunter, but the rigid coordinates of a loop closing in on itself. Look at this top-down floor plan of the bedroom. This establishes the closed arena where the paradox unfolds. Every movement from here on out is constrained by these four walls. This diagram maps the present timeline. Starting at time 0, a straight line tracks chronological actions, lifting legs, shining the flashlight. Mapping the future, a second line emerges from ahead, curving backward. The future warnings synchronize with present actions. Intersections lock, stopping forward momentum completely. These future warnings create a convincing illusion of free will. The protagonist believes they are receiving vital intel and choosing to react. In reality, they follow a rigid set of instructions that leave no room for alternative choices. Because the protagonist complies with these instructions, freezing in place and listening intently to the hallway, they inadvertently clear a path. Their absolute stillness allows the physical threat to advance from the hallway directly into their room. The audio messages from the future act as a structural restraint. They paralyze the present self to ensure the monster approaches without resistance. The analytical mapping falls away when the threat enters. You sit frozen, staring at the door, listening to heady breathing directly over your shoulder. The climax of the audio assault arrives in a 40-second voice note. The future self reveals a specific temporal gap. They are exactly 10 minutes ahead. They confess their mistake of turning around and beg the present self not to do it. Then comes the silence. With no further messages, the protagonist is left in a void. The absence of digital instructions triggers an unbearable cognitive overload, as the brain cannot process an invisible breathing threat without new data. The temporal paradox weaponizes this exact anticipation. When the protagonist hits their mental breaking point, it is a physiological outcome dictated by the timeline, rather than a lack of willpower. After an unknown amount of time trapped in that silence, the phone buzzes one last time, a final 5-second voice note. The protagonist is compelled to listen, not just out of fear, but because the previous messages have conditioned them to rely on the device for survival. The recording plays. The voice simply says, "You turned." The psychological weight of anticipating that message, the sheer dread of the silence finally breaking, forces the physical reaction. They flinch. They look behind them, fulfilling the paradox. This diagram shows how the loop mathematically closes. The future self's plea not to turn was the exact mechanism that generated the anxiety, which forced the turn to happen. The warning caused the event. This narrative mirrors the architecture of modern smartphone habits. The story began with a message that played itself, much like the auto-playing content and push notifications that dominate our digital lives. We are conditioned to passively receive intrusive information and react to inputs we never explicitly requested. When the final turn is made, the loop confirms that every attempt to escape was a step toward the end. We are left as passengers in a sequence of events where the device dictates the outcome, and our agency is just another part of the script.